Hello and welcome back to the Elite Football Show. My name is Haider and I'm your host as usual today. Well, it feels nice to wake up on a Sunday morning and Man United have won 4-1. What a fantastic result. I will be honest with you, I rewatched the game this morning because it was my mum's birthday and I didn't really watch the game properly. So I really got down and watched it properly. And actually, it was a fantastic performance. And that's why I've got four fantastic co-hosts, the usuals, Marc, Ciaran, Pauly, and my man Joe. How are you doing today after that fantastic victory last night?
Yeah, all good, mate. Yeah, we're good.
Yeah, good feeling to actually win a game. So
I don't want to get ahead of myself, obviously, but I was very pleased with how we played yesterday. So yes, woken up, better mood. Always nice to do that, isn't it?
Didn't feel great waking up this morning.
Pauly had a few drinks last night, but no, I'm the same as Marc. Actually, last night I was just putting the brakes on because I think as a fan base sometimes we do get excited by one victory here, one defeat here. It's always it's always one extreme or the other. But before we go ahead, guys, we've got a few of you in the chat. Make sure you get your comments in. Make sure you like and subscribe. Give a follow to all these lovely people who are with me today. Give at EFS_media a follow as well. Let's just jump straight into it. I'm just going to say something quickly before we go into the main topics, guys. But I am so sick and tired of Ollie out versus Ollie in. I'm so sick and tired of the two extremes. And it makes victories and defeats unenjoyable. I mean, defeats are always unenjoyable, but victories are unenjoyable because you've got a section of the fan base that really push that agenda that they almost want United to lose. And that's something that really frustrates me. It's sensationalism on both sides. You've got the pro brigade, as I'm going to call them, who at every opportunity have to call out people because we win one game. And that's why yesterday I was a bit like, let's relax. Yes, we've lost 2 or 3 games. It's one victory. We played well, but let's just not get too excited and think Ollie's the best thing since sliced bread. And I'm going to come to you first, Marc. You're saying you don't want to get ahead of yourself. Does that bother you as well, that the fan base is so split that you can't enjoy a victory because you know that someone's going to be saying told you so, or someone's going to be saying Ollie out?
Yeah, there's no middle ground, is there? Listen, I don't want to get ahead of myself just because, it's early in the season. We're going to win games. We're going to lose games. We're going to see people, as you said, take it from one extreme to the other and then jump on, if we win, it's all great. Everyone's happy. Everyone's singing. And then next week we might lose again. And it is a frustrating thing. I get very frustrated with the split between the fan base as well. But it's something you can't stop. We have no control over who says what, unfortunately. And you have to take it with a pinch of salt and ignore the things you don't want to see. I'm happy, obviously, today. We've had 4 games. We've got a game in hand. I appreciate we're only, we're still quite far down the table, but another win propels us up to 5th potentially. And it's all we'll be saying completely different things. I'm really happy with how we played yesterday. I think there was a lot to prove. Obviously, we're going to probably Harry in a bit more later on, but we did well. We did what we played with conviction. We didn't just win. We won well, and it was really good to see. And I appreciate we scored a bit late, but sometimes that's just what you have to do. You have to grind out a result. And look, let's just enjoy the moment and take the 3 points away.
Absolutely. Helly, good afternoon. I felt like it was morning there for a second. Sorry. It was a good one last night. And you're saying wanting the team to lose.
It is morning, Haider. It's early in the morning on a Sunday morning.
It is for you, mate, wherever you are in the world of America. But Helly, how are you? Thank you for jumping on. Yeah, that is a great question, Ciaran, isn't it? Are you a fan? I mean, something I just want to quickly touch upon is that I looked at Manchester Evening News' player ratings this morning. Good God, I don't know what is going through their head. I mean, I know Pauly's best friend, Samuel Luckhurst, obviously works for them. But, okay, so here's a few ratings here, and I'm going to come to you. Maguire got an 8. Shaw got a 5. Fred got a 5. Lindelof got a 4. Rashford, Van der Beek an 8. Van der Beek played 15 minutes. Bruno got a 7. Okay. Now, what I want to say to you is that there's some people saying that... I saw an article, I can't remember who it was by, it said Ole Gunnar Solskjaer silences keyboard warriors. So if you're a fan that says something, sort of, I guess, against or criticizes the ownership, the managementship, then it's a problem. And then you have others that are just won't give any credit where it's due. And it's just the press are doing it. They're playing on the split in the fan base. It's so frustrating, isn't it?
Yeah, look, it's annoying. I'll go to both points there. First, the ratings. Look, for me, the Manchester Evening News is just a blog now because there's nothing really reputable that you can read there anymore. It's grand for getting some of the updates that come from like press conferences and stuff because they have they've the live tracker. But other than that, nothing really of substance comes out of there. So I tend to not listen to it. The kind of rating system for me has always come from like these fan channels that want to push out their kind of favorite players, and you see it all the time. The fact that you're giving Lindelof 4 or 5 when realistically he made one mistake and the mistake led to the goal, but other than that, he didn't do anything wrong. So
he had a good game, I think.
Yeah, so you have to look. It personally, I think yes, he was at fault for the mistake, but I think the lowest score you can probably give him is a 6 out of 10. He's probably more of the 7. Maguire, I thought, was better. He was more commanding when the ball was being given up. But look, I think Newcastle played to the strengths of our centre backs as well, which didn't make it as difficult for them. But some of those other ones, look, Van de Beek, look, I get they're giving him an 8 because he was kind of influential in some of the goals. But again, he only played 15 minutes. Normally, you wouldn't do that. To the fans that want them to lose, it's the same people that go on like on all the different social media platforms and have gotten big just because they're being negative about their own team that they're supposed to support. It kind of goes back to this whole the Ollie in and Ollie out stuff. It kind of goes back into this the FIFA, I say, fan base, kind of the real younger generation that want change all the time and think that if you change a manager that suddenly all the results are going to improve. It's the same people that think that you can sign a top class player in one day. It just doesn't happen that way. If you keep chopping and changing managers, while it might work in the short term, it's not a good long-term plan, and you've seen it for many teams. Madrid did it for a while, and then suddenly they get Zidane and they started winning again, and they kind of trusted him. But then after Zidane left, they chop and change for a year or two, and then ended up having to bring him back. If you do that this time, I think you're risking a lot of the success that we've had over the kind of the last 18 months, and just kind of washing that away just because you want to see a different manager because you're sick and tired of the one. But I see from the same people that always say Mourinho out, Ollie out, whoever the next manager is, they just want change and that's it. They don't want to be able to stick to it. If Ferguson was still the manager, they'd be doing the same thing. So for me, I try to ignore those people because again, it has all stemmed from previous Arsenal fans that did it with Wenger, and it's really just gone from there. I think for me, I just assume it's kind of the younger fan base because they're the ones that kind of you see it more often that they want everything changed every kind of year or two if they don't get what they want.
Yeah, that's fantastic points. Joe, I'm going to bring you in.
They're pandering to their audience when they give those ratings to Shaw and Lindelof and Van de Beek because the fans don't like Shaw. They want Tellez. The fans don't like Lindelof. They want Bailly. And the fans want Van de Beek to be starting. He played 15 minutes. We're going to give him an 8, and that way your audience can say, "Oh, he was so amazing. He should be in the team every week."
Well, I will say though, I'm going to bring Joe into this because I had a discussion with someone on Twitter today. There's a certain section of the fan base who you say anything in terms of criticism towards Ollie, and you're immediately just shot down. I said yesterday, and we'll talk about this a little bit later, but I tweeted that I feel like we rely on individual brilliance too much. I praise Solskjaer because he's a fantastic manager. You cannot deny that. But I think it's fair to say that tactically, I'm not saying he has no tactics, because this is another thing. If you say that Ollie perhaps needs to work on something tactically,
name me a manager who's rely on individual brilliance. I don't know if you want to go here because I might spend an hour arguing.
No. One sec. We're going to touch on that. We'll touch on that later. One sec. Let Joe come in. We can have our own discussion about this on another podcast, right? We can do a full hour if you want. But Joe, when you say something like that, which is not even a criticism, it's constructive. You can't just sit there and blindly follow a manager because you like the manager. And a lot of people are like that. And so at the end of the day, you say something like that. And this is a problem with the fan base. To jump on it, oh, you said Ollie has no tactics. I didn't say Ollie had no tactics. I said that I don't see the same sort of the philosophy driven into players the same way that a Klopp or a Guardiola. And I think that's fair to say. Hassan Hutel does the same. Bielsa does the same. So there's all these things melted into one sort of melting pot, and it just makes for such a toxic atmosphere. And in some ways, you can't enjoy the victory like you want to.
Yeah, I mean, look, I feel like I'm one of the biggest Ollieing people there is, to be fair. But, even I can see flaws in his coaching and his management at times. There is, and it doesn't matter how good you are. You'll always have certain people who will find things to criticise. And that's right, because that's life, isn't it? Nobody's perfect at the end of the day. And Solskjaer's certainly not the perfect manager. He's not the perfect coach. He wasn't the perfect player, and he's not the perfect man, and nobody is. And you'll even find sections of Liverpool fans out there that'll criticise Klopp. There are, there's people that have done it. Even when he was doing well the season, they just missed out to City. People still weren't convinced by him, and there'll be people out there that are questioning Guardiola, especially over the last couple of seasons. And I mean, that's ridiculous when you look at his record. So, yeah, I just think, it's like anything. You have to, when you have a manager or a player at your team, you have to embrace their strengths and their weaknesses, because that is what makes them the person that they are. You just hope that they can cultivate a good dressing room, and and they can look at themselves and improve on what they need to. And I think, to be fair to Ollie, looking at that result against Tottenham a couple of weeks ago, it would have been quite easy to have lost a lot of those players. And it's probably too soon at the moment to know whether he really has or he hasn't. But
what I will say is he definitely hasn't lost the players. And anyone that thinks that, and I'm someone that I would say, I'm not going to call it a scale, but if there is a scale out of everyone in this conversation sitting here, I'm the one who's probably the least bought into the vision. And I think that's fair to say, guys. That's not to say I'm Ollie out, but I see the flaws more than other people. Maybe that's just because I have a different view of how I want the manager. And I'm not necessarily right, but not everyone's right here as well. We all have bits. But what I will say, Joe, is that, he definitely has not lost the players. Because if he lost the players, that is a game yesterday where when you were 1-0 down after 2 minutes, under Mourinho, they're the down tools, we'd have lost that 2-3-0. Yeah, they fought back and they won 4-1.
Well, they would have lost this game last year.
Can I just...
Last year they would have lost.
My point is that's what I'm saying. That's one of his strengths. I mean, obviously we saw Barcelona lose 8-2 in the Champions League to Bayern Munich, and Ciaran had just lost all respect from the players. He probably didn't have the respect that Ollie had to start with anyway, but my point is but who's talking about that? Nobody's making mention. I don't see many people giving credit to Solskjaer, because actually that he'll have had a real tough job on his hands this last couple of weeks, getting those players' heads back up. Don't forget, he's not had actual physical contact with a lot of these players as well till the last few days, because we've been away on an international break. So he's obviously done some work with them through phone call, through messaging. I don't know, but I just think credit to him for that. And he deserves credit for that. People need to talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just going to read out a comment here by Zaka. Nice to see you, mate. He says, Ollie has shown already that he had been the manager post-Fergie in all aspects. I think you mean sort of the best one post. And I would agree with that to an extent. I would agree. He's not the perfect manager, as Joe alluded to, but he definitely, for me, is the one which I think I'm most happiest under, and I can see the most direction. I do have my reservations, but we can talk about that another time. Pauly, I'm going to come to you. Let's talk about the team selection, because there was a lot of uproar. All of us included were very puzzled when we saw that starting lineup. I think if you got to sit down now after the game and say, he got it spot on. I think I would have still made some changes, but talk to me about some of the players that you were surprised to see start, and tell me how you think they did.
I don't know if I would say spot on, but it worked. So, you can't hate it. It worked. When you think about, is this the team any of us would have selected? Absolutely not. But when you look at it and you say, well, we have PSG this week, and then Chelsea at the weekend, and then RB Leipzig the following week, and I think it's Arsenal after that. And you look at the schedule for the next month, and you say, well, if ever there's a game to rotate the squad, it is this one. And even though we're not tired yet, but you rotate it so that you don't get tired. And that's so yeah, I'm very surprised to see Dan James in there, and less surprised to see Mata. I thought Mata had a good shot at playing. Not surprised to see Fred. A little surprised to see McTominay, but I wasn't completely shocked by that. So it was more of just the overall the overall shape it was more of the fact that it was nearly an identical team to what we put out there at Newcastle last season when it didn't work with the addition of Bruno Fernandes. And you kind of looked at it and like I tweeted like, hey, it worked. Like, maybe the guy knows what he's doing. And so many people were jumping in being like, well, except for this player and except for this player. And everybody had a different player. So I was like, so clearly it worked. Like some of them weren't great, but like they weren't bad. I thought we found out again, as we always do, that McTominay and Fred aren't a good partnership. And usually that's because Fred drops back and splits the center backs, and McTominay just isn't really a good 8.
He hasn't got the passing ability forward. We've had this conversation many times, haven't we?
But yesterday it was McTominay not splitting the center backs, but dropping back into that right center back position where he's been playing for Scotland, and he was brilliant. But Fred, as the number 8, that's not his game. He's weaker there, and he struggled. So the two just don't work together. But when I saw the team, I said, well, you're trying to get an hour here at maybe 0-0, 1-0 or something, and then you have game changers to bring off the bench. And with 20 minutes to go, it's 1-1. That's exactly what you bring on your game changers, you score 3 goals. And frankly, by the time United made a substitution, Bruno had already missed the penalty. So they should have been 2-1 up. Not to mention they should have been 2-0 up because, Newcastle got nothing except for a fluke own goal. And after that, they really didn't threaten our, De Gea made that one incredible save, and that was it. They really didn't threaten the goal much. So it worked. And the beauty is now is you head into this PSG match with most of your big guns having not played 90 minutes at the weekend.
Yeah, fantastic point. Ciaran, you want to come in? I know you've got a point to make.
Yeah, just based on kind of what we were talking before about how managers seem to be the ones that kind of get a lot of the stick when things don't work out. They get blamed because they don't have the tactics weren't right. But I think, especially when you lose games like we did, we mentioned the one for Barcelona last year. I think this comes down, and it's very similar in American football, that the quarterback gets too much of the blame and gets too much of the praise. And I think the same thing happens for managers, that when a team loses, it seems like all the negativity goes straight to the manager nowadays, when before it went to the specific players that didn't play well. Now it seems that you could see it everywhere. Like when Chelsea lose, it goes straight to Lampard.
But it should be in that case.
Well, yeah, look, that's a different story. That's the defense for Chelsea, that it doesn't seem like it's tactically set up. But for United, anytime that they don't play to their sparkling best, all the negativity goes onto Solskjaer, and you do not see many of the players getting the blame. Because we've said it for a while now, the last couple of weeks, and even towards the end of last season, Bruno has played terrible. Now, he was great yesterday, but there was very few people that were blaming him. Now,
that was Pogba, though.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to say. There's certain players that people will gravitate towards to blame because they don't like them. But you don't see it as much these days. Straight away, it goes to a manager, especially if it's an inexperienced manager. They get blamed straight away. So I think that people need to relax a little bit, and it's going to be a very long and inconsistent season for a lot of teams. And you actually have to analyze what's actually happening on the pitch rather than just saying, this is the manager's fault. It was the same with Barcelona. It's not the whole manager's fault that they lost 8-2 to Bayern Munich. Their defense was woeful. Some of their players didn't look like they were even bothered to play that game because they thought they lost before the game started. You can't blame the manager for it all. Look, he wasn't the greatest manager, but at the end of the day, it's not like they came 4th, 5th, 6th in the league. Like they went up with Madrid all the way up to the last week of the season. So they weren't that bad. It's just that Bayern Munich were ridiculously good.
Yeah, fantastic.
And this is exactly what Ciaran said is exactly what the men were doing with those player ratings, like giving Luke Shaw 4 because they want to blame him. That's the fans are going to gravitate on that. I guarantee you, if Alex Telles started at left back and had the exact same game that Shaw did, people would be like, oh, he was great. He was unlucky on that own goal, but the rest of the game, he was great. But with Shaw, it's, you forget the other 89 minutes of the game where he was very good.
I thought Shaw had a good game.
Yeah,
he had a great game.
And I'm not a big fan. I'm not a fan of him.
He got unlucky.
Shaw was surprising yesterday. I actually thought he was terrific. I know he had it was unfortunate, the goal. You know, these things happen, but I thought he got forward a lot better. He was trying to overlap a bit more. It was a very unsure-like game, yeah. And I thought he was very good.
And I didn't agree on the overlapping thing. He was still coming in when he was.
He was coming in. He was coming in.
So, like,
what I meant was he was trying to push forward a lot more, which I was really pleased to see.
I mentioned during the game I would have liked to see Alex Telles come on for maybe Dan James and him kind of going on the overlap instead, or going out wide if you had Shaw coming in, because I think after a while Dan James I thought he was fine in the first half, but later on the second half he didn't really offer that much. So I thought that having both Shaw and Telles, because I didn't think that Newcastle were that threatening to us, they were kind of sitting back, and I think having two players on the left to do something different was good. And you never know, that's a possibility going forward if they wanted to change it a little bit. We know how good Telles is going forward. If you wanted to have both of them on that wing, there's no reason why you can't do it.
Especially when you play the likes of Liverpool, I would say, where Trent's going to go so far up. Obviously, Van Dijk looks like an ACL injury. What I do want to say quickly on that,
Sorry, Haider, can I just make one more point on the manager before we move on, mate? I just want to back up what Ciaran says about don't get too overhyped when we win, don't get too low when we lose on the manager. Remember we did a podcast, mate, after the first game of the season where we had Abdel on, didn't we? And we did a sort of breakdown of the game. And if you remember, he said when the team's doing well or when they're not, you know, when you look at a team and you break it down, 15 to 20% of it is about the coaching. You know, the rest of it is about how the team performs and things like that. So that, you know, this was based on a study that was done somewhere. And when you take that into consideration, those stats, 15 to 20% of the overall performance of a team is down to the manager. That shows that they shouldn't be given too much of the praise when it's going well, and they shouldn't be given too much when it's not going well. It should be in proportion to that percentage.
And that's the same on the flip side as well, isn't it? You know, the fact that we played really well yesterday, if that formula is true, then, you know, the players should be given a lot of credit for how they played yesterday.
Yeah.
But that's why I wanted to say, guys, because the problem is that, and we're going to go on to Van der Beek, and I'm going to stick with what I tweeted out yesterday, and I lost a few followers for it, and I also had someone who got really pissed off at me for it as well, which is fine. Like, you know what, at the end of the day, that's what happened. People got pissed off at me. Huh? Was it Pauly? It was Pauly. Yeah, I mean, I called out Pauly yesterday, and he was like, nah, don't talk about Sancho again. Guys, look, we're having some really great comments. Please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Also, retweet this on Twitter if you're on Twitter, the Periscope's live, because we want to get some more people listening. It's a great show. I've got some great co-hosts with me today. Now, look, let's talk about Van der Beek. I'm going to come to my little American friend, Pauly, first. So we look at Donny Van der Beek. Now, I'm still of the view, I've slept on it, I've woken up, I'm still of the view that he's not Ollie's signing, okay? And people are saying, oh, well, he said this in public, he called him up. I'm sure he called him up. I'm sure he wanted him. But we all know his first choice midfield signing was Jack Grealish. And if Villa had got relegated, Jack Grealish would be a United player right now. Not to say he didn't want Van der Beek. I know someone was saying to me it's 4 games in, stop spreading, you know, making up rumours. I'm not making up rumours. My view on this situation is that I don't think, there's a lot of games coming, but I don't think that Van der Beek he's particularly hot on Van der Beek as a signing. I don't think that he sees him as someone who will be a starter or that will push to be a starter. I think he's there as a great option, a different option to have. But for me, I don't know what else he can do because he's worked really hard. He's looked sharp when he's come on. He's playing fantastically well when he goes and plays for the Dutch team. He deserved to start yesterday. And I know we won the game, but if he can't start that game, I'm not necessarily sure that Ollie's going to go and drop Pogba, Bruno, or Matic for the game against PSG. So if he's not playing that game as well, he's getting 15 minutes here, 10 minutes here. It's a little bit of a concern for me. Plenty of games, he will get game time, but if he can't get in to start against Newcastle, what's the chance he's going to start against Chelsea, Arsenal, PSG, Leipzig? He might do. Then that's 2 months in, and he's not played much game time, and then that's another issue that might arise a little bit later.
Jesus Christ, Haider! It's been 4 games. Like. Here's the First of all, I don't think that Solskjaer sees him as a number 8, and he certainly doesn't see him as a number 6. And all right, he can play there. And I think if Pogba got hurt, then maybe we'd see Bruno or Van de Beek as replacing Pogba. But for now, he doesn't see him there. Like, there's a reason that when he came on yesterday, he went to number 10 and Bruno moved out to the left wing. Like, that's where he sees him. So right now, you're a backup to Bruno Fernandes, who isn't going to get dropped. And over the last 3 games, I'd definitely say that Van de Beek deserved to start this game, and Bruno deserved to be dropped. Pogba deserved to be dropped. Matic deserved to be dropped. So you could have dropped any of them, but Solskjaer also has to balance out, like, how many of them do I drop and how many do I keep playing because, they're not going to snap out of their funk from the bench. The only way to get back into form is to play. So he drops one, doesn't drop the other, which means Van de Beek isn't going to play. Now, does that mean he's not going to play against PSG or Chelsea? No, I don't rule that out. Like, there's a chance that he doesn't play today for the same reason that Pogba and Matic didn't, because you have this run of games coming up. And Juan Mata is basically the rotational cup player who last year was primarily playing in the FA Cup and the League Cup and the Europa League. Well, now you're in the Champions League. So if he's not effective against Premier League teams, you're not going to play him in the Champions League. So when you're looking at your schedule for this week, which game is Mata going to play in? He's going to play Newcastle. And that saves people. So like now when you look at how this formation works.
So why isn't Van de Beek playing Newcastle? Because Van de Beek's not going to start against PSG.
How do you know?
He's not going to start against Chelsea.
Why not?
Do you think okay, Zach has said here that Pogba looks like he's got a bit of an injury, fine. But the point is that he did really well at rotating his squad yesterday. He should have played Van de Beek. No matter how you dress it up, Van de Beek should have played. What
if his plan is to say, like, right now Mason Greenwood not getting it done on the right wing? So what if his plan is to say over these 3 games, Newcastle, PSG, Chelsea, we need to play one of our midfielders in the Juan Mata role, as I call it, which is either going to be Fernandes or Bruno or Van de Beek. And I don't want to play one of them in all 3 games. Or Bruno could play all 3 games, but Van de Beek, I'm only, his plan has also been to ease Van de Beek in. Like, he probably wanted to do that with Bruno last year, but he couldn't because United were crap and he had no other options, and he threw him straight into the fire, and it was sink or swim. And we're all very lucky that Bruno not only swam, but swam very fast. But with Van de Beek, he has this opportunity to ease him in case there's an injury. Then you're not burning Van de Beek out yet. So like if Pogba or Bruno pick up an injury now, you have a player who is very fresh, but he could be looking and saying, I'm going to need one of my midfielders to play on this right wing in this Juan Mata role because Greenwood's not going to get the job done. And Mata can do it against Newcastle, and then against PSG and against Chelsea, we're going to put Bruno there, and Van de Beek is going to come in as the number 10. Like, there's just no reason to get mad about it right now when we haven't seen Joe, you're muted, so I know you're trying to yell at me. We haven't seen the next 2 games yet.
Go on, Joe. I'm bringing you in.
I'm not trying to yell at you, mate. I agree in a large part of what you're saying. But what I would say, though, is I think me being on mute, there's something new in it. Now, I think what I'm trying to say is that I think Van de Beek would have started yesterday if United had lost to Tottenham 1-0, 2-1. I think he missed out yesterday because I think Ollie felt he had to go Fred and McTominay. I don't know whether he felt he had to go that way because he wanted to shore that midfield up, obviously, because for me, you can talk about 6 and 8s and everything like that. I still see Fred and McTominay essentially in Solskjaer's mind as two sort of defensive midfielders.
Yeah. So, and that's where they probably should play.
Yeah, so for me, I think if United hadn't got spanked in their last game and Ollie felt the need to shore that midfield up that looked so open against Tottenham, I do actually think Donny might have started against Newcastle, but I just think he felt that his team had to have a more defensive look to it just to reassure probably the team, us fans, and himself as manager. Yeah,
I'm going to bring Mark into this. Look, when Van de Beek does come on, he's always very bright, isn't he? He's a very clever player. He's got fantastic movement. That goal for Bruno, that 1-2 between him and Bruno, passes it out to Mata to Rashford. Rashford, a fantastic. That's something Rashford has improved. Is his awareness, isn't it? He's fantastic, sort of chop back to Bruno, and Bruno with a fantastic finish. But every time you see Van de Beek on, and when people like Mata are playing and Bruno, immediately the IQ, the footballing IQ, just goes up at Man United, and that's something we can't say we've had a lot over the years. So many clever players, and we'll talk about Juan next. But you look at Bruno, Pogba, Van der Beek, Juan Mata. Now that is a smart side, isn't it?
Yeah, you took the words out of my mouth, really. I think yesterday, Mata, Bruno, and Van der Beek, they're all very intelligent players, and you can see that from a mile off. I think what those three tend to try, I know Bruno takes a bit more of a risk, but what those three tend to try and do a bit more than anybody else is they won't try and keep on to the ball too long. They'll be looking 2 or 3 steps ahead, trying to give it to the next person, to only having it for a small amount of time to not sort of provoke any, you're losing the ball sort of thing. But they were terrific yesterday. I'm really pleased for Juan Mata. We've spoken quite highly of him the last few games. And, I do think that out on the wide right, a bit like Greenwood, he's a bit useless. But if you can play him on the right of the midfield, he's far better. And those three to watch yesterday were brilliant. And I think that they really thrive off each other. And that was fantastic to see. And actually, that's good because now we've got another headache where options, exactly. Juan Mata can play. He's not going to play week in, week out. It depends what formation you play. But Juan Mata, if you were to put Dan James' legs on Juan Mata, or take Juan Mata to be 24 years old again, it would be phenomenal. His footballing IQ is incredible, and they together they love playing with each other. You can see that, and they really make the right decisions. It was great to see.
I'm going to bring Ciaran into this. Something I do want to talk about. Marc, fantastic points. I think Marc is the voice of reason today, not Pauly. Don't want to get Pauly's head to get too big. But what I will say...
You're just taking advantage of... It's Sunday morning, and all you've been doing is firing shots at me for like the last 12 hours.
I have to get you back for that retweet you did of me. No, so...
I already deleted it because I woke up and went, ooh, wow, what was I thinking?
Oh man, I could have gone in, but it was all right. It's my mom's birthday. I had other things on my mind. Okay, boys, I'm going to bring Ciaran into this.
Happy birthday, Mom.
Okay, that's just sounds
every week, the day after a game, I wake up and I go, God, you need to take my phone away from me after matches if I go to the bar to watch.
Pauly, you get absolutely bladdered on match day, and I love it.
Yeah,
all of us stuck at home.
I go to the bar and I'm just sitting there drinking the entire game, and then I just rage tweet or I just tweet like crazy. You got to take my phone away from me after games.
Yeah, 100%. Look, I'm going to read out a comment here, and this is something that Zaki, you're getting really involved. Thank you, mate. Honestly, you've been brilliant. Thank you for all your comments. We should try diamond, guys, besides right wing. I think we have the players for it. Any thoughts? Now, this is something I'm going to bring Ciaran into. I know we're kind of going off track, and then we'll talk about Mata in a minute. But so many fans say this, but actually, I don't think we do have the players to play this. And I'll tell you why. Yes, Telles has come in. A formation like that, for me, you need your fullbacks to be that, providing that width, that attacking outlet. And when you look at us, Telles can be that. And we'll talk about Wan-Bissaka a little bit later. He had a really good game yesterday. First time in a while. And I'm so delighted because I absolutely love Wan-Bissaka. And thank you. I'm wishing my mum happy birthday. Yes, thank you, mate. We bought her a KitchenAid. It cost 300 quid. It was very expensive. Bought her like 2 cakes. Went all out, really. But yeah, she
what does it have to do with the diamond?
Yeah, come on.
She is the diamond. That's right. My mum is the diamond.
Unless you bought her a diamond.
Mate, I'm broke. So Ciaran, we talk about that diamond. But the problem is, again, our fullbacks aren't probably... Maybe Telles is, but that's something you got to work on. We can't just drop a diamond and tell the players, right, you got to play this. We did it under Jose really well against Chelsea a few years ago, but it's a formation that the fans just need to get out of their head because we're not going to play that, are we? We've got our set formation. Ollie's not going to change it too drastically. We might go to 3, but that's something which fans just need to get out of their head. It's something we'll play very rarely, isn't it?
Yeah, look, what you'll see is he'll probably implement it as a plan B or C in a game, and might use it and see how it works. He's not just going to start off a game playing a diamond if they haven't trained it in it for a while. Solskjaer is one of these managers that goes with these tactics or goes with these formations in training for a while before he actually implements it into a game. So that's why you're not going to see it anytime soon, I don't think. But there's always going to be a possibility that he likes to change kind of formations within a game to try and see if he can, especially when we're playing against a team that are doing the low block and we weren't able to get through. He has kind of changed formations to see, does the different kind of look to it help open up a team a little bit more? I don't think you're, like I said, I don't think you're going to see it too much in kind of the near future, but there's no reason you won't see it this year. On the kind of Donny van de Beek thing, there's a couple of things that I agree that I think Jack Grealish was the first option. But we also have to remember is that before joining Manchester United, the last game Donny van de Beek played was on the 7th of March. So we can say about pre-season, but maybe he's not ready to play a 90 minutes in a Premier League game and Solskjaer's easing him in. That's a possibility. You also have to look at the teams that we're playing. It's not like we have 4 games in 3 weeks. We have them in about whatever it is, 14 days, 14, 17 days, something like that. Now, if I'm looking at the teams that we're playing, which one I would want him playing against, for me, it's the Chelsea game, because that defense is so open that he's the type of player I want getting into the box if we're playing Cavani or Rashford or Greenwood up front, to have that extra man coming in. So there's a lot of things that you could use there. So for me, I've always said I don't care if he doesn't start. I don't care if you're playing Pogba instead of him or if you're playing Fred and McTominay, because at the end of the day, as long as you win, that's the important thing. And like we said before, the reason he was brought in was to have more options in midfield. Last year, when it came to the end, we had no more options in midfield that he trusts. Now, he's doing well in these short bursts. He's going to get to play. Look, players know who the best players in the team are. And if a manager stops picking his best 11, then the players start to turn against the manager. It happens in every single sport. Those players know who the best players are. Now, if Donny van de Beek has been one of the better players in training and is a class above players that are currently starting, there'll be a problem within the club. But right now, I don't think that's an issue, because you have other players there that for the certain plan for certain games have come in. For me, I think it's just going to take time, because at the end of the day, it's not like he was part of the squad last year and then has come in and can go in firing. Like, you have to remember is most new players that come in, for the most part, are training with their team for weeks on end. He hasn't really gotten the chance to do that, because he was training with them for the Crystal Palace game, the couple of cup games, Brighton, and then was off in international duty.
They just haven't had a lot of training because they've had so many games.
So that's the problem. So, like, we can say he's done great for Netherlands, but he's been part of that squad. So there might be certain things or certain calls that they have when they're playing that he might not know everything that the likes of Pogba, Fred, and McTominay know exactly what Solskjaer wants to do. Well, he might know the kind of game plan. He may not know every little detail that's very important to kind of do exactly what the manager wants. So maybe he doesn't trust him to play that full 90 minutes. Maybe he's just not up to it in terms of his complete fitness yet. I don't think it's that, but there's different possibilities. I just think that Solskjaer has been putting out his team that he thinks is the best to win that specific game. And you can say everything you want about him, but the team he put out yesterday won 4-1. And that's the end of the day. Yeah.
To answer the original question about the diamond and Zakir's question, we don't have the players for it, but I disagree with you, Haider, that it's the fullbacks, because when Solskjaer was given the permanent job, that the tail end of that season, we had a lot of injuries and everything, and he actually switched to primarily using the diamond or just a 2 up top striker formation, which asked Luke Shaw to do a lot more going forward, and he thrived there. He had 3 assists in the last 5 or 6 games, and his numbers went up significantly.
Luke Shaw.
Yeah, Luke Shaw. He was player of the season.
Last season. The season just passed, the one when he first joined.
When Solskjaer just joined. Yes. Then last year, he, we didn't use the diamond, and we have Rashford on the wing, so you're changing Shaw's role and asking him to do different things. You're saying, like, don't worry about the creative as much because we have Rashford out here. Remember, when did Shaw play like his best football of the year? It was January, February, March, when everybody was saying, well, Brandon Williams' emergence has been pushing Shaw. Well, also Rashford wasn't there. He was hurt. So, fullback and Wan-Bissaka is better getting forward than you think. Like I say, he struggles in the build up. He's much better in the final third. He was fantastic getting forward yesterday, but that's one game. Now we need to see that on a more consistent basis.
I like his ball control for going forward.
But the issue is the forwards. Like we don't have somebody that can play as a right striker. Like Rashford and Martial are both kind of left strikers, and when you ask one of them to play on the right, they are useless. So so like the diamond just is taking your best players and putting them not in their best position. And why? So we could get Van de Beek, Pogba, and Bruno on the field at the same time.
Like shoehorning everyone in, and it just if I completely agree with that. It doesn't make sense to me. I'm going to bring Mark in. Fantastic points, Pauly. I do agree with that. Mark, bring you in on this before I move on to Juan Mata. What have you got to say?
I agree with what everyone said. Primarily, and we could perhaps play a diamond. I think that maybe we might see the best out of Aaron Wan-Bissaka if he is asked to move forward. We know he's fantastic defensively, but if he's forced into a position where he has to push forward, then maybe we'll see a bit more of yesterday's ambition. But you're absolutely right. Just because we have the options of having Pogba, Van de Beek, Bruno, and Matic, that doesn't mean that we should all throw them under the bus every game, and we've already seen that Matic can't play 2 games. And, if we get an injury, then what then? Yeah. And we don't want an injury to any of those. They're 4 great players that we want to keep fit and healthy consistently. Just back to Bruno. No, not Bruno. Van de Beek. I was disappointed, just as everybody else, that he didn't start. But I think Ciaran was absolutely spot on. And I think that if he hasn't played since March, then he's not going to perhaps go in and get a run of games. And we're only 4 games in. Pauly made this point earlier. We're 4 games in. If this was 10, I would then start to be asking questions. Okay, but it's 4 games. Alex Telles, we may not actually see for a couple more weeks.
Oh, look, you know what made me laugh quickly, Mark? I'm just going to butt in. When people were complaining that Telles didn't play, myself and Ciaran did a fantasy football show, and we actually analysed the players that came back. The South American players, so James, Firmino, Richarlison, Telles, came back. They played on Wednesday,
Thursday afternoon.
And it's like a 14-hour flight.
No, they didn't train on Thursday. They trained on Friday. That was it.
Telles was never playing. And Telles, I doubt even Telles plays against PSG. I
think he doesn't speak English. Like you need to figure out your communication and stuff. It's going to take him a little bit of time to not only settle in, but to learn the tactics and everything. Because on the fly, like communication between him and Maguire is not going to be easy.
Yeah, I think his debut is against Leipzig.
I don't think that sort of example is going to appease fans already, because, like you say, Richarlison played and he played in the game. I know they were playing a massive Merseyside derby.
He's not a new player though.
Firmino played as well, didn't he? So I'm just saying, I agree with what you're saying, but I don't think the fans will look at that and be like, "Well,
this is the problem, isn't it? Fans are too impatient. If it had gone the other way and he'd come in and had a crap game, fans would have been on him. But if he's not,
it would have been on Ollie. Ollie, why'd you throw him in? He's
whatever. But there would have been some sort of negativity somewhere. Now, I am not expecting to see him. I don't think he'll play against PSG. I don't think he'll play against Chelsea. He might play after that. I think that's only fair. And fan Leipzig fans are going to be frustrated with that. I'll be frustrated with that. I'm desperate to see him play. I want to see what he can do. I want to see him get forward. I want to see him give us another dimension, get crosses in, get more headed goals.
Now, mate. He'll be
and penalties, yeah.
I want to see him get a penalty against Chelsea.
Yeah, he's on him now, mate. After Bruno.
Guys, I'm gonna read out a comment.
You can see though that his addition is already pushing people because we scored on a corner.
Yeah, and that's what. Look, guys, great comment, Zaki. Thank you very much. Look, we do this every single week, so make sure you hit the like button, hit the subscribe. I've got these awesome guys with me every single week.
Every Wednesday.
Myself, we're the most level-headed United, I guess, show out there. You know what? I'm gonna be arrogant and say it.
No, I think that's fair.
I think it's fair. Look, fantastic.
The voices of reason.
Yeah, the voices of reason. Okay, Marc Joe. Sorry, I can't see your name because you're like and subscribe. Joe, look, I'm going to come in and I want to talk about the Super Juan Mata. In my notes, I've written June Mata. I don't know why. I can't spell this morning. But look, Juan Mata, I'm going to rattle out a few of the statistics. I mean, look, we've had this discussion before where I feel like we've wasted Juan Mata's. he's come at the wrong time at Man United. If he was under Fergie or someone like that, I think he just would have been on another level. But looking at his numbers are fantastic. Juan Mata seems to have a little bit of resurgence this season. There was a lot of people saying that he should have left. There was reports that he was going to go to a Saudi club for a £17 million a year deal, I believe, or something ridiculous like that. He stayed. Very happy he has, because you need a bit of experience and know-how in the squad. First Premier League start since February. It's funny because we all love Mason Greenwood and he's been fantastic off the right, but Mata offers something different. Mata doesn't have that pace and power, but he has that vision, imagination, that footballing brain as you've spoken about. I honestly think those are qualities we lack. And you're looking up and he really did kind of pop up everywhere. And we talk about those pockets of space, and he's one of the best at doing that, drifting in there. He actually created space for Wan-Bissaka. The big thing I want to talk to you about today is that he passed the ball to Bruno 31 times. They found each other 31 times. Now talk to me about that, because that is something that Juan Mata hasn't had, has he, when he's played in the side?
No, I think, just first of all, going back to June Mata, I think that might be his mum, mate, and she makes a brilliant cup of tea.
His grandma.
No, mate, you just hit the nail absolutely smack on the head with that last stat that you said there. The fact that he passed the ball to Bruno 31 times. I think we've been on this show before and talked about it. I think if Juan Mata plays nowadays in this team, he's got to play around certain individuals. So therefore, it's combinations. We've said it before. Like, we've often seen him come off the bench and he's not done so well. Or we've seen him come off the bench, or we've seen him play in League Cup games when he's not playing around other good players like Bruno and Van der Beek. I just think they're two players in particular that I think over time you'll see him thrive playing around. And I think that at his age now at 33, he's at that point in his career where he needs, if he's going to look good, he needs to be around other good players as well. I think if you played Juan Mata yesterday and Bruno wasn't playing, I think he struggles to look as effective in that game, to be honest. But that's what it's all about, combinations, and Solskjaer's learning, and I'm glad to see that. He's played, and then Bruno was always going to play, obviously, so that's not such a... It's not like he's played Bruno because Mata's playing, but get Mata on the pitch when Bruno's on the pitch, and I think it's just going to be... It's going to be brilliant for us, and I think that against any team. I don't just think because it was Newcastle yesterday, I just think their intelligence around the box that people's already touched on that. It's just going to be so positive for us. And I think they have a connection there that, United need to harness, just the way that they harnessed this sort of Bruno and Martial connection when he first came in. They've worked that. They've actually been quite keen to put a media spin on that as well. The club are always tweeted out pictures of Bruno and Martial together and say, captured this and everything. That, we want to make a big deal of that partnership. And I think... they should do the same with Mata. The only thing, United will have to be careful of now is at what point does actually Mata become part of our strongest 11 with this form, and therefore he doesn't play in games like Newcastle. You actually want him in the games against the likes of PSG, because I don't see Mata now playing on Tuesday against PSG because, with his age and everything like that, you are going to have to manage him. So actually, that'll be the next key thing now. As he elevated himself with his performances this season into Solskjaer's thinking that actually this guy might be part of my strongest 11, and then will we start seeing him playing in different sorts of games moving forward, like maybe the Chelsea game next weekend?
Joe, you were spot on about something, and then you just ruined it there at the end. The key is that Mata provides you with something different. Is Rashford and Greenwood are not so much wingers; they are wide forwards. And Dan James is like, when he plays on the left, he kind of plays more as a forward, on the right as a pacey winger. So when you play teams that sit deep, there's no room for these forwards to run in behind.
Exactly.
And we discussed this a few weeks ago. I think Haider and I, this is why Solskjaer wanted Grealish, because he offers something different to Rashford. As he plays more, off the left, he plays more as a midfielder who will cut in. And that's exactly what Mata does from the right. And this is what would happen when we played with McTominay and Fred in midfield. Why Bruno would struggle is because they struggled to get the ball from the defense up to Bruno. And that caused Bruno to drop back into midfield to get the ball. Now he's getting the ball in not dangerous positions. And the players in front of him, Martial, Rashford, and then James or Greenwood, they're out up front. They struggle at receiving passes. They struggle at finding those pockets of space. When you bring Mata in, he drops into midfield. and Bruno could stay forward. And now you saw it, the stat 31 times. So all of a sudden now you're getting the ball to Bruno in dangerous situations, or Bruno would still drop deep and Mata would run around and find those pockets.
Bruno actually got service, which he's lacked the last 4 games.
Exactly. So you ask, like, maybe Mata should be playing more often, but does that mean he's part of your first 11 or best 11? That depends on the game. Like, if you're going to play a very good team who sits deep, like maybe Atletico Madrid, then yeah, you'd put Mata in there. But like against a team like Chelsea or a team like PSG, or and even other teams like down the line, like Brighton, who want to come at you and attack you and leave pockets of space for people to run in behind, that's where you would want a James or a Greenwood or a Rashford to take advantage of that. But if the team's going to sit back, like, then yeah, we have a conversation like that. If they're going to sit deep, Juan Mata should be in that first 11.
Mark, I'm going to bring you in. You're on mute, I think.
I am. Yeah.
Go on, mate.
With Mata, he was incredible. And I think you're gonna, with high IQ players, you tend to see them be a bit like Helly said. Actually, they're always disappointed with any mistakes they may make. They're always prouder of their football, and I think when we see more of that from Van der Beek, we'll get that too. And it's the same with Juan Mata and Bruno. That whilst Bruno does take more risks, as I mentioned earlier, he doesn't like making mistakes. You can see the disappointment on his face. The same with Mata, and they are a lot prouder in what they want to do, and that's obviously good to see. You need players like that. You need that intelligence. That's everything for me at the minute.
Yeah, I'm going to make a few comments. Guys, thank you so much for all your comments. Make sure you hit the like button, hit the subscribe if you haven't already subscribed. And please give all these lovely people a follow that are sitting with me today. Your comments are amazing. Ahsoko, I know that you missed your alarm, mate. So what I'll do after this, I'm going to upload it anyway. It should be here on YouTube. I'll upload it onto Spotify, Apple Podcasts as well. You can listen to the audio version if you've got something to do and you can't see our wonderful faces this morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are in the world. But yeah, fire your 2 questions in a second after Ciaran said his point on Mata. But I want to talk about Mata because there's a few things I talk about a lot, and you guys know this. I say I have an issue that we don't have a plan B. I think we found our plan B against sides that sit deep. We have an inability to break down sides. We did it great after the restart, but that's something we've always struggled with. Now, is Mata the solution, Ciaran? Because let's just have a look at how many shots we had. 28 shots, 14 on target. That's more than any other side in a single game this season. And I didn't realize that. I was too busy making my mum a cake yesterday to even watch the game properly. But I honestly, I didn't get. That's why I rewatched it today, because I said, look, I was a bit annoyed yesterday because I was, we were good, I thought, but I thought, at the end you kind of ran away with it. We were very good yesterday, and I admit that I was wrong in that respect. But something about Mata as well, and Ollie's comments say it all. He said that Mata's a consummate professional. Everyone knows his quality in the squad. That's important. It seems to me that he's very well respected. And Ollie says as well, he's been patiently waiting for his chance. Now, that is the biggest thing for me. Mata sat out and watched Dan James play, Lingard play, Pereira play. All these players who have not even 1% of Mata's ability. He's never complained. He's never gone and leaked stuff to the media. He's never said anything bad about anyone. He's put his head down. He's worked hard. He's utterly respected. He's integrated into Manchester incredibly well.
He was in a bad spot last year, though, because he was playing in the Europa League and the turnaround was just too quick, so he couldn't come back.
Exactly, that's a good point. And so when you look at it, I'm not saying Mata's a solution. He's not going to play week in, week out. But when they're sitting deep, he's actually perfect for this sort of game. We don't necessarily need, as Pauly said, quick wingers, because James doesn't do well receiving ball to feet. That's not his strength of his game. That's what he needs to develop. Whereas Mata, that's what he does beautifully. He made 2 fantastic passes. The one through to Rashford, where Rashford should have scored, and then the one to Wan-Bissaka. And he also made the other one to Rashford when we scored the goal. But talk to me about perhaps him being the key to breaking down the sides. And then Ahsoko, when Ciaran's done, fire your 2 questions and I'll pass them over to the guys.
Yeah, it's a difficult one because we've seen Mata play in some of these games. Granted, it's not been with Bruno, and you see even in the Carabao Cup games when he's playing with Van der Beek that they had a good partnership, because when you have creative players, they like to play with each other, and you see that those relationships are a little bit, they they form faster because they're both on kind of that same wavelength where they know where they want to go. It worked yesterday against Newcastle, but I don't. That's a great comment, but I don't see how it's going to work all the time, because at times against the low block, you do need to have a little bit of penetration, and if a team are playing deep and nobody's going in behind, it's going to be difficult for Mata anyway. So you kind of need a balance there. He's great because he has the creativity. He can make that one pass that can bring it through. But if nobody's kind of penetrating the defense, it doesn't matter, because he's not going to be someone that's going to be able to run past the defense. He's the one that when somebody makes that run, he has that killer pass in him that can find that player. So yeah, it's great, and it works having all those creative players on the pitch at the same time.
Can I just say one thing whilst you're on this topic, Ciaran? We saw this with Pogba as soon as Bruno joined. It brought the best out of him. They're both creative players, and what you're saying is spot on. Yeah,
and to a certain extent, it worked towards the end of the game because you had Mata, Van de Beek, Bruno, Pogba all playing. And you had that bit of kind of stability in defense because you still had McTominay back there that was helping out. You actually saw it, a lot of the counterattacks that Newcastle made. McTominay was the one breaking it up. You didn't see it wasn't so much that the defense were kind of the one stepping up. It was him. He was getting it, and then straight away he was playing it forward. Something we don't often see with McTominay, because like Pauly said earlier, he went back into more of the role he plays for Scotland, which I think he plays excellently, because it's where he's played best, and we've tried to push him in a position where we've basically tried to make him the kind of younger version of Matic, and that's not his game. But going back to Mata, yes, you have to have someone like that for a plan B. Our plan A isn't always going to work, where we have, especially before when we had Greenwood, Martial and Rashford trying to get in behind and trying to score a lot of goals. Sometimes you need something a little bit different. When you have so many creative players and they can play together, you're more likely to pick that pass because Rashford, I think, has done excellently well to try and run in behind like he's been caught offside a couple of times this season.
He had a great game though, didn't he?
Yeah, but at least
he's not as sharp, but he was good, wasn't he, yesterday?
Yeah, but look, he's making those runs that the creative players can find him. You only have to look at, for example, the France game for Pogba. He was able to do it in that game. You've seen Bruno make a lot of these great passes now. I think his passing was a little bit off yesterday. But again, he scored a great goal, and really was unfortunate not to have two because of an offside. But you have to be optimistic with the options that we have. The fact that you've seen that Andreas Pereira has been let go while Mata is still there. Mata for me is, and I mentioned it before the season start, and it always comes back to kind of the youth team. I think you need to have those glue players, that they're not going to be your superstar, but they're going to be the players that kind of be able to push it all together. Mata's one of those players. He's not going to be playing week in, week out, every single game, every big game. But I think he's one of those experienced professionals that's won absolutely everything there is to win and knows what the game needs. And he's not going to be one that's going to kick up a fuss if he doesn't play. But when he does, he brings people together. You saw him in the Carabao Cup. I can't remember who was the captain in those games, but really he was the one that came out as captain. And you saw it with the interviews he played after. He reminds me very much of Bruno outside the pitch, because the way they talk is very, very similar.
Yeah, fantastic points. Couldn't agree more. Guys, we're going to come to some of your questions, and at the end, we're going to quickly touch on whether this is a revival for Ollie or a flash in the pan. We'll jump on that quickly because at the beginning we spoke about sort of the whole Ollie in, Ollie out crowd. And then we'll mention Bruno's comments as well, because I think that really outlines the sort of character he is, and we need more people like that in the squad. Right, Pauly, I'm going to come to you. Orwa's got some questions. Thank you for getting involved. They're more to do with Sancho, because I know you are the biggest expert on Jadon Sancho, so I'm going to come to you first. So I'm going to read them all out because there's a few here. What do you think of Dortmund CEO's comments saying he's willing to do a deal with United for Sancho next summer? I'm sick of Sancho, I'm not going to lie. Nothing personal, I'm just bored. I'm going to read out the comments as well. Vazka said, on Sancho's situation. Man United misjudged the situation. Yes, they did. We'd be more than willing to compromise. We had a clear line and we'll continue to do so next summer. You can never say that a player is completely unsellable. So what are your views on that? Trying
to be relevant, like throw Manchester United's name into your story so that you get clicks. I mean, who cares? Let's figure this, like, let's talk about this in April and May. Like, that's when we could start talking about it. I don't care to talk about it in September because now, I mean, maybe he has stock in one of the newspapers because now they could start linking Sancho to a January move and get clicks for that, and nothing's going to come of it.
I agree with that.
Yeah, I agree.
Can I just jump in here, Haider? I think what's happened here is I think they've realised. that the financials in football is probably not going to change till next summer either.
Yeah, massive.
We'd rather see a situation where actually Manchester United might be the only player come next summer that can buy Jadon Sancho, and all of a sudden now the backpedaling and quietly they're probably regretting maybe not doing a deal this summer because everybody's financials. If this continues the way it is, everyone's financials is going to be, if not the same, even worse, obviously. And I think what Dortmund hoped is that obviously, come October time, this time of year now, clubs around Europe would start getting fans back in stadiums. Revenue would slowly start to go back up. And next summer, like we said before, we said it a lot of time on transfer shows, United might not be the only people at the table. But actually, if the year keeps going the way it is,
they will be one of the few.
Changed. In fact, the only thing that might change is that they may not have a buyer at all next summer because United might lose so much this year financially. That if they couldn't do it this year, what's going to be different next summer? So
exactly,
very difficult to predict.
They're starting to worry a little bit, to be honest.
And what if Palestri turns out to be a star?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. They're quietly probably a little bit.
Woodward is like this.
So yeah, they missed
or even you have to think about it. United are going to look at it and be like, Dortmund were terrible to deal with. It was very difficult to get a deal done. So why don't we just scout somebody else? Like, you have to remember, it's like, to a certain point, you can have the game for a transfer window, but now that it hasn't happened, United probably have to move on and look at other players. And also, like Pauly said, Palestri could be excellent, Diallo could be excellent.
They already had their plan for who we're going to target next year. Like, they already had.
It's going to be
this summer we're going to target these players, and then next summer we're targeting these players.
Yeah. Like, Mark, I'm going to bring you in. Sorry, Ciaran, you last point, and then
just one quick thing. The other thing that you have to think of is, and I always kind of link this back to when we were linked with Milinkovic-Savic for so long, who was 80, 90 million, right? He had a pretty poor season after that, after not getting his transfer. Like, if Sancho doesn't hit the heights of what he did last season, if I'm Ed Woodward, there's no way in hell I'm offering anywhere close to where I did this summer.
Half the price, I would say. Mark, going to bring you in. Always got another question. Quickly answer this because we've got 2 more topics after this. Although I'm really enjoying this. So if the listeners enjoy this, we could even go to an hour and a half. That's another half hour. If you like, if you don't want to, just say in the comments, guys, we're getting bored of you. But if you're not, then we can go for an hour and a half. We've all got time today, I think. Pauly obviously needs to have a bit of breakfast, but he's nursing a hangover today. So
I want another drink.
Yeah, he probably does.
I have to go to a wedding today and sit in my car, and while I'm sitting in my car at this wedding, I have to stream another wedding.
What?
The hell is this?
Wait, 2020. What year?
Yeah, right?
The life of Pauly.
Who would have said? Who would have said?
He's getting trashed again.
Yeah, exactly. Who would have said in 2019?
The good news is that while I'm sitting in my car and not streaming the other wedding, because who the hell would want to do that? I could actually watch the NFL.
He's going to be watching the Jets and crying about that too.
Yep.
Don't say that again, mate. You completely cut out.
It must be a drive-through wedding. If he's in this,
that's exactly what it is. It's a drive-through wedding.
Vegas. He lives in Vegas. This guy. I'm telling you about that.
100%. He's not actually Pauly. That's all it's like Mark Goldbridge. It's all just like a character. Okay, but, Mark, I'm going to bring you in because obviously you're sitting there very patiently. Do you think we should go back 3 against PSG? Orwa said Tellez as a wing back, Shaw as a left side centre back. We need to remember Cavani will probably be available, and he's got a point to prove, hasn't he? He's going to be absolutely chomping at the bit, as he said himself. And you could see Cavani or Rashford or Martial up top, Van de Beek with Bruno in midfield. How do you think we're going to play it?
I think it would be a bit risky playing a back 3. I know that we've obviously seen that can work quite well. When Ollie originally come in, he was playing Luke Shaw back left, wasn't he? Defensively, he is very good, and it might be nice to see both Luke and Alex on the left-hand side. But I think because we don't play that enough, and we saw it against Chelsea in the FA Cup, it didn't work out for us. We tried to shore up the defence, and it didn't work out for us. And I think you're taking a huge risk going against someone like PSG, which, you know, quite arguably the best front six players in Europe. So it's a huge risk for me. With all great teams, you generally, obviously, you do have more than the plan A, but you generally have a good formation that works well. You're covered everywhere, and you're consistently playing that. And obviously, when after Project Restart, that's what we saw with the side, with Bruno coming in, and you know, that's what we saw a lot more often, and it worked for us. But then we got found out. It could be an option, and I wouldn't say I would be surprised if I saw it, but I think it would be risky, as I said.
Yeah, I wouldn't.
I can't imagine.
We have to play it a bit more, I think, and know that it works before going in against PSG and then falling flat on our face.
100%.
I can't imagine a world where Cavani starts this game. Like the way you just said, Tellez wasn't going to play. Cavani hasn't played a game since March. He hasn't trained with. He comes out of quarantine tomorrow, so he's never going to train with the team. Is he available? Yes, but
he's scoring the winner.
Not even
100% scores the winner.
Oh,
guys,
yeah.
I'm going to read out.
We could come on for the last 7 minutes with Ollie just being like, go out and do something. But there's no way he's starting this game. Yeah.
Guys, I'm going to read out a question from Ahsoka. It's to me and Pauly. Highlight for me, that's you, was Bruno Mata combining, and then later with Van der Beek. Do you think three of them could work behind a centre forward? I get the width problem, but with Tellez and Wan-Bissaka, could it work? Pauly, I'm going to pass it over to you first. What are your thoughts? Give me a quick summary of those thoughts.
We saw exactly this yesterday, and it worked phenomenally. It's actually one of the things that I would credit Solskjaer with, because against Brighton, towards the end of the game, he switched to a back five when he brought Bailly on and took off one of the attacking players. And it looked like no one knew what to do. Like Fernandez looked lost. Like, you know, Martial and Rashford looked lost. It looked like they didn't understand what to do. And it was weird because it was like, if this was your plan, how did your players not know it? Then yesterday, he brings on, when he brought Van de Beek on, and Bruno shifts over to the left wing, Mata's still on the right wing. Everybody knew exactly what to do, as if like Solskjaer said, this is the plan, like, you know, with 15 minutes to go. And when Donny Van de Beek comes on, here's how we're going to play. And they moved completely in sync. It was very interesting. You saw Fernandez and Mata continued to both just drop into the midfield and cut inside a little bit, which gave space for Wan-Bissaka down the wing. But then Pogba would race forward, and he would be the one getting forward. And that kind of caught Newcastle out a few times. So it worked very, very well. So yeah, I think it absolutely can be an option going forward.
What I will say, guys, we've got to move on. I've got two more questions. I'm going to fire them to Ciaran, and then Joe, you've got a question for you right at the end before we talk about Ollie and then Bruno. What I will say, adding to that, I agree with Pauly. What I will say is that actually United's strength now, I can't believe I'm saying this because for years it wasn't, but they've got a lot of quality in midfield, a lot of quality where there's players that can pick a pass. So, you know, there's an idea that United could really pack that midfield and then play, let's say if Martial's out like he is, and then play like a Rashford with a Mata. Even like Bruno played off the left, and I quite liked him off the left. But he wasn't necessarily like a left winger as such. He was more of like a left attacking mid sort of.
He's what Jack Grealish would have been.
Exactly. And it worked really well because you had Pogba playing. Obviously, you had the McTominay. Van der Beek was on and Mata was on the right. I mean, I can imagine if Bruno plays that position, Greenwood would have played on the right to balance it out, in my opinion. Yeah, because the pace. But no, I think it can work. Look, Ollie's got options now in midfield. Unfortunately, he didn't really get, you know, the right winger he wanted, but now he can actually compensate. He doesn't necessarily have to play wide forwards or traditional wingers because we don't play with traditional wingers, and that's the point. This is something I quickly want to say is that Martial, Rashford, and Greenwood, not one of them looks to put a cross into the box. They go and they look to have a shot off, and that's worked for us, but it's also a bit of a problem now. What Sancho would have changed.
But none of them are really good with their heads either.
Yeah,
so like if you are crossing to them, like what's the point of that?
But with Tellez coming in, say Cavani plays a bit more, that's a brand new dimension to the attack.
It's a different look.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, I'm going to bring Ciaran into this. Ahsoka's got another question. Also, Van de Beek is making it increasingly hard for him to be dropped. I think you mean to start. At what point for you guys does he start? I totally get that Bruno, Pogba are still our best, and Van de Beek not being a DM makes it hard. We had this discussion at the beginning, Ciaran. I want you to quickly sort of give your view on this before I move on to the final question.
Yeah, look, for me, it's all about options. I like Van de Beek in there. I don't think it's going to be. I know a lot of us have been kind of looking at the next kind of 12 to 24 months when Pogba eventually does leave. I don't think it's going to be a huge transition when he does, because I think Van de Beek does a lot of things that Solskjaer wants in that position. But again, it's about options right now. I just don't think it's gonna. I just don't think it's realistic to say that he's going to be starting every single week, because again, you don't know what his levels are compared to the other players. The other players have been there longer, so it's hard to know. I think they're all able to be used in kind of many different ways, and it's the beauty about having a player like that he doesn't have to play every single game. He doesn't have to start every single game. It's not like Bruno, where he's the one that kind of can link up the play, and also, even when he's playing terrible, can come up with an assist or a goal. I don't think Van de Beek's going to be like that. He's going to be one of those kind of hardworking players, but then he has that bit of creativity as well. I know a lot of this we kind of spoke about at the start, so I don't want to go too far on it, but I just think it's all about options, and that's why I think he doesn't necessarily need to be starting games, but he needs more minutes, I would say.
Ahsoka, make sure you just check out at the beginning. We did a big chunk on it. I think it's about 20 minutes in. So, we did a big discussion. Last question before we move on to our final topics. Joe, I'm going to pass this one to you. It's from Onka. Thank you for your comment, mate. If Pellistri and Diallo show good promise, should you drop Sancho's interest altogether? Why invest so much money when you have two exciting wingers with promise? Now, I'm very much on the wait and see, because they could have a fantastic season, but we've seen so many players. Januzaj had a fantastic season. Where is he now? So, where do you sit on this?
A lot of different factors to this one for me. I think, to be fair, you could say if we have two good players, if they do really well and they exceed the expectation, then that no longer becomes a problem area. We talked about that the other week, didn't we, when I made my stupid Adam Johnson comment that was totally misconstrued. But basically, I think it depends on a couple of things. One, it depends on United's financials and their budget next summer. And by that, I mean, will they have enough money to afford Jadon Sancho's valuation, whatever that is, next summer, alongside actually the areas of the squad that they need to improve? So I think next summer they need to be looking to improve, and I think we've touched on it there already. They will look at maybe trying to get another centre back in, you would hope, maybe another central defensive midfielder, something like that. I'm not sure. So if Sancho's price comes down to something that's more reasonable and it fits within their budget, then I think you would still do that deal, because he's a like you said before, Haider, a generational talent, and you need to get these players in. And I think, the thing we've got to be so careful is Pellistri may come in and have 5 incredible games, and same with Diallo when he eventually comes in. At some point, they're going to have a drop-off. We've seen it with Mason Greenwood. He's having that little drop off now in his performances, and he just,
as expected. He's so young, and you need to,
you can't, with young players. It's the same when Rashford first came into the team. Obviously, when he made his breakthrough a few years ago under Van Gaal, you can't just expect them to come in and just hit the ground running unless they are generational. I mean, we don't know. I mean, Pellistri, he may be that next talent, but if he is, then who knows? And the other thing is, if he is that good, how long will he be at Manchester United for? He's South American, he's Latin American. If he becomes incredible, will he go somewhere to one of the bigger clubs in Europe? So United.
That's why we bought him, Joe. Sell on value. That is purely why we bought him.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So and therefore United then don't want to be left in a situation when they've moved Pellistri on, or even Diallo in the future, that they're still looking for that winger. If they get Jadon Sancho, then you'd hope that they'd have that winger for the next 10 years. So I wouldn't to sum up the answer to the question, I wouldn't completely rule it out, because you've always got to keep your powder dry. You've got to keep your options open, but it may not be such a priority next summer if those guys do well and United's budget is such that they can only afford to buy a defender and another midfielder potentially.
Yeah, I agree. And Ura says here, we're linked to centre-back signing in January, and with Pogba's sale, we go and get Sanchez. To be honest with you, I would love that. I would love us to go and get Upamecano. I love Pogba, but I do think that if there was no COVID, he probably would have gone by now. Someone stumped up the money. Next season, I don't see anyone stumping up the money again. We triggered that 1-year extension as well, so we've protected his value a little bit.
Look, I think the thing with Pogba is he's gone from being, I think in those first couple of years, fans were so afraid that if he got sold, I don't think he's an unsellable player anymore. I think you have players that can do that job. Look, that's not me saying that Pogba's not a good player.
I don't think he's pulling up the money that he's interested in. Like, I think ultimately the most amount of money he get is signing a new contract.
Well, unless PSG want to bring him in, that's probably the only one.
And looking at their midfield as well, it's not particularly stacked. But what I will say, last point on Pogba, guys, we've got to move on to the final two topics. And I will come to Mark for this next question. But look, the thing about Pogba as well is that he needs to understand now that he's got to make United his dream. Okay? You can talk all you want about Real Madrid, etc., etc. You need to play, because quite frankly, at the moment for me, Bruno's outplaying you. Bruno's become the focal point. And that's fine, because Pogba isn't that sort of player. And this is what people don't understand. We said it the other day. People expected Pogba to be the hybrid of Paul Scholes and Roy Keane. He's just not going to be that. But he has fantastic attributes that we need in our squad. But at the end of the day, if he doesn't want to be here, United actually could be better off. They got rid of him, brought in Grealish, because Van der Beek's already a replacement, I think. Bring in Sancho at centre-back. United suddenly now have a team. You look at that on paper and you think, right, that could challenge. So, that's me being wishful. But anyway, Mark, I'm going to bring you in. I've written this down. I know your thoughts on this, but obviously out of everyone here, I probably have the most doubts over Ollie, but that's not really what I'll go into. But do you think this is going to be a step forward for Ollie's revival, or is it a flash in the pan? Because, we've got a very difficult run of games coming up. And look, each game Ollie has to win. Unfortunately, that's just the way it is, I think, at the moment. I'm not going to say if he loses next week, he gets sacked. But come the end of the month, if he goes and wins 1 out of 4, then there is possibility that he will be under threat.
Yeah, it's going to swing in roundabouts, isn't it? We had a good win yesterday. We played how we wanted, and it's very easy, as you mentioned, we've all mentioned time and time again, it's very easy to, go from one extreme to the other. I don't think it's a flash in the pan. I agree with you, Haider, on a lot of points where I am very much Ollie in, but I can see his frailties and furthermore, and I just don't want to get ahead of myself. If we can build upon this and maybe get a decent result against PSG and then Chelsea, then all of a sudden we're sitting in, further up the table, and then we can work on that. Pauly rightly said earlier, we've taken a fantastic opportunity to bring in a team on a bit of a rotation, and actually it's worked brilliantly. So this is now an opportunity to keep doing that, keep bringing in the right players for the right matches. It's very difficult to say, isn't it? He seems to go through. He went for a wonderful spell when he came into the club, which fundamentally got him the job, because I think someone else would have been lined up. So he probably didn't help himself there, to a certain extent. And then he obviously had an awful time. Then he had another great time, and it could just, these things happen. People have bad days. I made this shout last night about Harry Maguire, and I said the same about Ollie as well. People have bad days. Humans do make errors, and you have to allow that to happen from some time. And whilst it might upset the fans, and it's not a nice thing to go through, these things happen. You're not going to win every single game. You're not going to be perfect all the time. So I have to, as a Manchester United fan, and it's the right thing to do, is get behind Ollie, get behind the players, and hope that it's not a flash in the pan. Hopefully they can get a good result. It's just unfortunate we've won a game brilliantly and have got a very difficult run at now. I think the conversation would be very different if we had beaten Newcastle in the same way yesterday, and then we had maybe a couple of easier games. I think the conversation would be totally different. So it's just an unfortunate series of events, and hopefully this isn't the flash in the pan. Hopefully we can kick on from this. We've just got some tough games, and let's just try and get what we can.
Well said. I'm going to pass this final one over. I'm going to give this to, look at all you looking. I know Pauly's got to go to his wedding, which is streamed at a wedding. It's like Inception of weddings, isn't it? You're going through a drive-through wedding, and then you're actually watching a wedding.
It's the weirdest goddamn thing in the world.
He's Elvis
Pauly,
and everything.
Pauly, can you send us a link to that, mate? I'm quite intrigued.
Yeah, me too.
You do not want to go and watch my cousin's wedding. Trust me.
Send the link to all the people watching this show right now.
Pauly, can you film yourself watching the wedding? So like it's like us watching you.
No, because I'm gonna be using my phone to be watching the Jets.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. All right, I'm gonna give this question I'll go to two people. I'll give it to Joe, and look, Ciaran staring at me with his lovely eyes. No, Ciaran, I'm gonna give it to Pauly. It's a quick one here. Well, let's have a look at.
He's giving it to the dream team. Here we go.
The dream team. I'm gonna speak to you first, Bruno's comments. Joe, talk to me about them because there's some very key things he said about Maguire that I want to pick up on, and then I'll come to Pauly about his view on how Maguire played.
Yeah, I think it was a real clever way from Bruno of, first of all, sort of saying we're right behind you, Maguire, and we are behind you, and we believe in you, and you're a teammate, and we're emphasising this good team spirit, but also just serving as a little reminder to Maguire again, just to say, look, keep on it. I think keep on it, and obviously understand that you're in a very privileged position, because he did rattle off, the fact that he's captain of Man United, he's part of a great national team, and just I think that's what that interview was all about, and just not to sort of let Maguire know that I'm right on your tail, and if the captaincy becomes available, I'm there, but I think it's just more that actually I do think there's probably not an issue there, but there is maybe a difference in opinions and thoughts, and I just think it was a real clever way of Bruno actually saying, look, we're right behind you, which they are, and they should be, rightly so, but also don't forget that this is Manchester United, and everybody listening to that interview as well, don't forget this is Manchester United, and what we've seen in the last couple of games before Newcastle isn't acceptable, and it won't happen again. And there's a way that Bruno says things, both in the media and I think probably away from the pitch as well, that I actually really, really like.
Yeah.
And he
uses his words incredibly well, doesn't he?
That we've been lacking in that dressing room for a long time. Yeah, I mean, but then again, the fan base will talk about it. You'll look at that interview and you'll probably read into it the way you want to read into it, if you know what I mean. Like that's the way I'm seeing it. I'm trying to see it from a level-headed sort of both sides, but I can't help but think that Bruno won't let anybody's standards slip in this team, and I think he'll always use the media and the interviews that he's done to serve as a reminder to everybody. Yeah,
very well said, Pauly. I'm going to come to you quickly for the final point. But what I will say about Bruno is that he's basically dispelled everything, hasn't he? He's just all the rumours, what Duncan Castle said, blah, 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 blah. He's just been like, right, that's it. Line under it. And that's something that Pogba hasn't done. I don't want to bring Pogba into it, but I'm just saying, as a comparison, we've had for 2 or 3 years, every time Pogba goes away, oh, I love Real Madrid, I love Zidane's bald head, blah, 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 blah. And then when you look at, obviously with Bruno,
and then he
that's
comes back and he doesn't talk to the media and he doesn't shoot it down.
So you can infer things. What I will say about Bruno, just on him as a player, fantastic performance yesterday. Finally, he has looked below par, but he always affects games. Now, this is a crazy stat. He's created 14 chances this season. Only James and Salah have done more. That's 15. And he's done that in a game less. Okay, United have hardly created anything, really. If I can remember, yesterday was probably the one that created most. And then the final thing I do want to say on Bruno, 27 goals and assists in 27 games. Now, put some respect on the man's name, please. Don't compare Havertz to him. Don't even compare James to him. James has come in and done fantastically well. Beautiful player. One of my favorite players to watch at the moment. But he's done it for 5 games. Bruno's done it for 27 games. So when is it time that people, especially rival fans, start giving Bruno the respect he deserves? Because for me, he's even outperforming De Bruyne right now.
Yeah, he is. He's been fantastic, and I will say this, like what I said to you guys yesterday, like how everything that he's been doing recently has gotten the fan base to be like, oh my God, he should be captain. And then yesterday, his comments after the game were like the most captain comments you can make. about Maguire and getting behind him, and no one really reacted to that. Like, does he deserve to be captain? Like, sure. Does Maguire deserve to lose the captaincy? No. Like, that's good. Like it's okay to have 2 guys that deserve to be captain. I'd like to have 4 4 guys in the squad that deserve to be captain. Like, you only have one, but you can have, you only have one official one, but you can have multiple leaders in the squad. It's he has been fantastic. If there's one knock on him, it's he can get frustrated in games where it's just not working and he tries to do too much of it himself. And I think that's, I think that was probably the knock on him, was when he came in and United went on that run and they had played, I don't know how many games, and they had scored 30 something goals. They'd conceded 3 goals. But what happened what happened? Look, you look at those games where they conceded goals. How did they finish? 1-1, 1-1, 1-1. So it was like, that's what I think was the biggest takeaway about yesterday, was not just the fact they went 1-0 down and on a fluke goal coming off of a 6-1 loss. That goal could have caused them to just implode right away. But also the fact they didn't score late, but they never got away from their, nobody's tried to do it all themselves. They kept playing their game, saying, okay, we're getting chances. We're not finishing, but the chances are going to keep coming. And eventually we're going to finish one. And, Bruno gets this chance and he finishes. And it wasn't like Bruno took the ball and dribbled through 3 players and took a shot from 35 yards out and it went in. It was a team goal that he was on the end of it. And they just kept playing that team game and got the result from it.
Absolutely. Mark, I'm going to give you the final line before we wrap up.
Yeah, I want some respect for Bruno, especially from opposition fans. His stats are quite incredible. And one thing I will say is, I know it's early to tell, but I think Bruno Fernandes is the player that Chelsea fans think Havertz is.
Yes, well said. Guys, thank you so much for all your comments today. It's been a fantastic show. We really enjoyed it. I just want to announce that Marc and Joe will be doing a review show every Premier League game straight after or the next day. I quite like the next day because I feel like you have time to sleep on it. Because if I'd done this after, I probably would have lost about 500 subscribers. So what I will say is, guys, keep an eye out for that. They're both going to be co-hosting it. We might have some great guests on it as well. That will be a live show. Thank you very much for listening. Guys, keep positive. I can always be one as well who's not always positive. But you know what? You got to remember, at least Frank Lampard is not our manager. So that is a great positive. Have a lovely rest of the weekend. And we will see you on Wednesday night for a live show. So make sure you tune in. Take care and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.